What's up, guys? This is Chase from AGM. So, many of you guys may be familiar with us. Some of you, if this is the first time, may not be familiar with AGM, but we're a big thermal and night vision, multispectral laser digital manufacturer, right? So we sell optics, laser light systems, night vision, anything if you want to see at night, that's kind of what we do. So one of the big questions we get on the thermal side of things is which is a big product category for us, is guys want to know if they're getting into thermal for the first time, is how far can you see with thermal? Well, if you'll notice, not just in us, and most of the big thermal manufacturers, whether you're looking at a rifle scope, a monocular, whatever product type it is, they will list either in the description or on the specification sheet, they'll list detection range. Okay, the detection range of that optic is determined by like 4 or 5 factors that go into a mathematical calculation, and it basically determines, here's the detection range for this model, right? So that shouldn't be something that guys can just randomly say. It's almost like lumens on a flashlight. There's actual tests that you can do to verify that detection range. Well, detection range does not mean that's how far I can distinguish and make a shot at an animal. The detection range means, theoretically, a 6 foot tall human target, and in an open field with a straight line of sight, I know there's a heat signature in that field, right? So that just means I know there's something there. I just don't know if that's an animal, a person, a car, a piece of farm equipment sitting in a field. You may not know that. It just means I know for sure there's a heat signature there. That's detection range. That's kind of what the industry uses as a standard to kind of give guys an idea of how far they could see. Well, really, the next layer below that, which you'll see advertised less, but occasionally, is called recognition range. Recognition range, it basically just means, okay, I can tell that's either a human or an animal or, an inanimate object in that field, or a barn, the roof of a building over there, something like that. You can tell those differences at the recognition range. Detection range is on most places. Divide that by roughly around 4. That's your recognition range. Well, your actual identification range, that's why they call it DRI, your identification range is the one you're probably most interested in. That's telling you I can distinguish between a coyote, a hog, the neighbor's dog, a different type of animal. I can tell if that's an elk or a buck or a bear, you name it, right? So that's your identification range. That's not advertised a lot, so a trick you can kind of do is take that detection range you see pretty commonly, divide that by about 6 to 8, and that'll give you a rough idea of what your identification range is. And that's kind of the most usable range a hunter would want to know. Okay, cool, I know on my property, here's what I can see at those different distances. I'll know I can hunt animals at this part of the property across this entire field or over into the next one. That's kind of your shootable range. Your shootable range is usually less than that because guys want to make moral shots and shot placement, but that identification range is the more, hey, I want to know how far I'll see this in the field when I'm hunting. You'll see that detection range, divide that by about 6 to 8, and that'll give you kind of a good rule of thumb on your identification range, right? And a lot of that comes from part of that calculation I was talking about. A lot of that is like the thermal lens size. So here's one of our Rattler V2s, right? We introduced this in 2024. We still sell them to this day. It's one of the most extensive categories out there. We've got about 7 different models. Well, they differ in the thermal resolution and the size of the lens, right? So you could have a 256 resolution, a 3D4, a 320, and a 640. Then you have the display resolution, right? So that's 1024 in all of our Rattler V2s. That's used to set your base magnification. Well, our new models are called the Rattler V3s, right? So they're also, let's say I took a 35mm lens in our Rattler V3 family, and it's got a 35mm lens here. I've got a 3D4 by 288 12 micron sensor in this one. I've got a 3D4 by 288 thermal sensor in this one. So how could the detection range be longer? Well, the display. We're using much bigger displays in this new unit. So this new 3D4 uses a 1920 resolution display. So when you change that one factor, it increases your detection range and therefore, consequently, your recognition range and identification range as well. So as an example, a 35 3D4 in our Rattler V2 series has a detection range of about 1,800 meters, 1,800 yards. When you bump up to a 1920 display, even with a more sensitive thermal sensor in our new V3s, that jumps up to 2,500 yards. The lens size didn't change. The thermal resolution didn't change, only the thermal sensitivity and the display back here by the eyepiece. So it's physically bigger and it's a little more friendly viewing, so you're not having to squint for long periods of time. That's just kind of a trend we've seen recently. It raises the base magnification, will be a little bit higher in this device and the V3s, so you can get to the higher ranges of the magnification without pixelating as quickly. So that's just kind of some tips we've given guys to, you'll see that detection range commonly, and guys, we hear commonly just, I'm not familiar with thermal, how far can I see? There's not a one answer. Your lens size could be different. It depends on the resolution, depends on 4 or 5 factors, but we want to just kind of share some little tips or tricks you can do as you see those detection ranges from different products. You can do a little basic math on your phone and kind of get an idea, okay, in the field, here's how far I can see with that bino or that monocular or that scope. So that's kind of the factors that go into it. And if you guys have any other questions about those 3 ranges, just list it in the comments and we'll answer those best we can.